everyone. Good morning and afternoon. Welcome to our second and final session on the future of finance. It's amazing that we have over 1,000 finance and accounting professionals joining us today, and I want to extend a special welcome back to those who attended our first session. With over 1,200 attendees in our previous session, it's clear that the topic of future-ready finance is in demand. My name is Nicolas. I'm the U.S. Senior Marketing Specialist here at DocuWare, and I'll be moderating today's session. I'm excited to welcome back our two finance experts, Christian Wattig and Nicolas Boucher. Christian is an FP&A expert and thought leader with over a decade of leadership experience at companies such as Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and more. He teaches FP&A skills to corporate finance teams and has 100,000 LinkedIn followers and over 30,000 newsletter subscribers. Nicolas is a prominent thought leader in finance areas such as AI, FP&A, and controlling, and shares daily insights with over 1 million followers. He founded the AI Finance Club and has trained over 3,000 professionals on ChatGPT for finance. We also have my colleague Nick Ivins, UK Marketing Manager here at DocuWare, on the line with us, and he'll join us again for the Q&A session at the end. Our goal for you today is to help you gain new perspectives and confidence in navigating this future of finance. Thank you again for joining us. We hope you enjoy the experience. Now let's dive in. So Christian, which skills and tools do finance teams need to succeed in the future of finance?
Yeah, so before I talk about the skills, I want to make sure that people are clear about what I mean with the future of finance. So on the left here, you see, what a lot of finance teams are dealing with today: formatting data, reconciliations, copy pasting, preparing data, moving them around, and doing other repetitive tasks. And in the future of finance, with automation and AI, you'll have those tasks get eliminated, so you have more time for higher value finance activities like in-depth analysis, advising cross-functional business partners, challenging assumptions, connecting strategies with tactics, action plans, and measurements. And that means there's a whole new requirement for the skills and tools you need to succeed in this new environment. And so I want to go a little bit deeper into those skills, and then later on we'll talk about specifically what can you do today to get closer to that future finance state. So the first skill you need is analysis, because with the additional time we have, finance has the mandate, I would argue, to be more proactive about identifying risks and opportunities. And to do that, they need to identify the so what behind a variance, right? The variance behind actual and the forecast. And to get there, you need to connect operational metrics. So those are metrics that don't have a dollar sign attached, like inventory numbers, hotline calls, website visits. You need to take those operational figures and connect them with your financials to create what are called leading indicators. But the thing is, and that requires a deep understanding of the business, right? You can't do that but when you just know your P&L and your balance sheet. You have to go out and talk to the broader business and understand, okay, how are they approaching their day-to-day? What are their pain points? What are their goals? And what have they already done to try and achieve it? But the thing is, the best analysis is useless if people don't understand your reasoning behind it, or it's not communicated effectively so that people can take action. So communication skills become increasingly important as we're moving forward with automation and AI. And so finance teams need to become master storytellers. You need to be able to take the numbers, see what's behind the numbers, right? Usually that's related to how those numbers speak to whether you're achieving your strategy, and then tell that story in a way that people without a financial background understand it, but then of course still be highly data-based and highly analytical. So you have to find that balance, and that takes a lot of skill. Additionally, you need to become influencers, because even if you communicate the message clearly and it's understood as intended, it doesn't yet mean that people actually take action and implement it. And the thing is, most of what we do in finance really is making recommendations. And then other people, other departments have to go and put that into action, right? For example, if you're recommending to change your marketing mix from spending more on social media to moving more to search ads, because in your analysis you found that those are more effective, you're not making that final decision, it's the marketing team, right? So you need to influence them. And it means that finance leaders need to become proficient at influencing techniques. And specifically, there are 5 main influencing styles, and feel free to write them down so you can look them up. There's rationalizing, there's asserting, there's negotiating, there's inspiring, and there's bridging. Those are the 5 big influencing styles, and you need to become familiar with each of them, because depending on the situation you're in, you may a different influencing style may be more effective than others. So that's the skill side. I believe that those 3 skills really become more and more important. On the tool side, you need to make sure that you have tools that connect different data sources. Because as I mentioned before, finance needs to look beyond the finance silo and take advantage of the operational data that's out there. But if you have to go to 5, 6 different systems, or maybe even look at some paper invoices, etc., you can't get there, right? You just don't have enough time. You again would spend most of your time with data crunching. So ideally, you have tools that connect all these separate systems, and you have access to everything in one single source of truth. And ideally, you don't just have access to this once the month-end close is done, but you should ideally have real-time access, so that any day of the month you could go in and you could run an analysis with the latest data. And of course, AI is on top of everyone's mind right now, and it's of course also on top of mind of many software companies. So those are companies in the planning space and in the data management space. And you've probably seen some announcements already that many of these software developers are racing to include AI in their products. So that's a really important space to watch, because these features will make it significantly easier to use those tools, and you will also be able to do more with them. And I'm excited that we have Nicolas here today again, because later he will talk to you more about ChatGPT.
Yeah, thank you, Christian. And of course, ChatGPT and other AI tools are going to be there in the AI finance landscape. I met yesterday with one of the founder of a tool where I was really impressed. Like, he showed me that his tool is going through all of the invoices and not only reading the total of the invoice and the invoice number. No, it reads everything on the invoice, including the details. So imagine like a cloud service that shows you all of the consumption, and you will see all of the past and also the budget, and you can analyze your expenses on cloud directly from this tool, because this tool read all of the invoices plus read your budget and shows you an analysis that normally you will take a few hours to do. It shows you that in a few seconds. And it has also the visuals, because we were talking about financial storytelling. So this is what we think is the future, is already happening in some specific AI tools for finance. And the more these tools will be integrated, the more it will help us in finance. But like Christian said, there is not only AI that is going to help us. And I want to tell a small story. When in my previous job, I was preparing the slides for a finance transformation project. And I remember I spent so much time preparing the slides, and there was my manager next to me who had another part on the presentation. And he just like made a three slides with just 3 bullet points and nothing fancy, no graphs, nothing. And I could remember people like almost falling asleep on my slides. And when my manager took over, like everybody was excited and just said, yes, yes, let's do that, let's do that. And I was like, okay, there's something I don't understand here. Like I spent too much time working on it, but my manager just knew how to make people convince and how to make say yes on our project. And that's what I want to share also today with everybody. It doesn't matter if you use the best tools. If you as a human cannot communicate the value of your work and cannot influence, like Christian say, then everything you did is for nothing, because the value that you bring is only as good as your communication. So work on this. If all of the rest you're already good at it, work on your communication, because us as humans, that's where we can still have a lot of impact.
All right, great. So given that partnering with the business is so critical in the future of finance, how can finance become effective business partners?
Yeah, so actually that's the question, right? So how can you become someone that the broader business comes to for advice and for inputs, right? And Google thought that as well, right? Google thought, okay, we have all these different teams. Some of them collaborate better than others. Why is that, right? What separates a team that partners really well with each other, that clicks, that you know performs really well as a team? How does that compare to how do they compare to other teams, and what separates these teams from the rest? And you know, Google is a very profitable company. They have a lot of resources at their disposal, and so they threw a lot of money at this problem. They hired external statisticians, they brought in organizational psychologists, and they asked them to interview a large number of their teams and to really try to get behind, okay, what are the best performing teams doing differently? And the leaders at Google, they went into this with some hypotheses, right? They thought that, well, probably it's important that, you know, for people to click, they have to have some commonalities. So maybe it's good if we put introverts together in a team and maybe extroverts in a different team. Or maybe it's probably important that people know each other well. So we want to do a lot of after work events where people can get to know each other, and probably the better they know each other, maybe even if when they become friends, they're going to work better together. But it ended up being the case that these hypotheses were wrong. That's not the case at all. After they crunched all the numbers, they interviewed all these teams, they collaborated with those psychologists and statisticians, they found that norms matter more than team composition. So in other words, how people work together is more important than the characteristics of each individual team member. So that was a big revelation going in, and completely different than what I thought. But then they looked at the deeper level of the data, because they wanted to understand, okay, good, norms are important. So what are those critical norms that make a difference? And I'll share the top 3 norms in a second. 2 of them didn't really surprise anyone, but one was a big surprise. So the third most important norm for teams to work well together was accountability, right? Not a big surprise. It's about setting goals, about making sure that these goals are understood and clear, making sure those goals are challenging, and that the roles and responsibilities are clear. The second most important norm was dependability. That teams have to trust that, hey, if one person says they'll do something, the others, then that actually gets done. Because there's, of course, things that depend on each other. And that also not a big surprise. But the number 1 norm was a surprise. So, and that was psychological safety. So that's about trust and that team members feel comfortable speaking up with mistakes. Actually, some of you may have heard the term psychological safety before. Some of you maybe heard it, but aren't 100% sure what it means. So let me share the definition by Amy Edmondson. Psychological safety is a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. And it's a climate characterized by interpersonal trust and mutual respect. So Amy Edmondson is seen as one of the foremost experts on the topic because she is a professor at Harvard and wrote a book about it. And if you bring that back to finance business partnering, really the way I see it is you have this flywheel of effective business partnering. And that's also how I teach business partnering. Once you have the trust, your relationships improve and people are more willing to share data with you. Because the thing is, sometimes people are hesitant to share data with finance because they're concerned that, oh, maybe that data will be used against me. Maybe finance will advocate for cutting my budgets or canceling this new project I'm working on. So sometimes there's hesitancy with sharing data with finance. But if you build the trust, you improve the relationships, there's more collaboration, there's more data sharing. And as a result of that, finance can do more with the data, right? We can show people that we don't just want to update, refresh forecasts and maybe reduce budgets. We want to show that we can run deep analysis, we can help them reach their goal. And once we do that, there's more trust, which means deeper relationships, which means more collaboration, and then this flywheel just keeps spinning. But the key takeaway here that I found to be true during FP&A for over 10 years is you need to start with building trust first. That needs to be your starting point, and then everything else starts to fall into place.
And if I may complete, Christian, one advice I give always to the people that were working for me in my previous team, we were working for in a manufacturing company where we had to really work hand to hand with the production team. And the problem is that the finance team is in an office, really like, I think 300 meters away from the production. And the production, you have to go out of your office to walk and go through the production and see the people there. And if you don't push yourself out of your office, and if you do a lot of remote work, you will never connect with the people from production. And I'm sure it's the same for any other business, especially if you have partners outside of your location, like in other countries. There is a lot of barriers to connect with your business partners. So I have 3 tips that I always gave to my teams. So the first one, you need to build goodwill. So goodwill, what it means is you need to do the first step by offering something. Looks like a bit exceptional, but for you is easy to do. And could be like you help somebody on their Excel file, because we are really good at that. Could be that you share information that usually people never get and will be really valuable. So build goodwill first. Then the second part, like I say, go out of your comfort zone and go and see people. So either if you can physically like decide once a week to go down and walk through the production, or like you just knock on the doors of offices just to say hi, and you will see, you will create so much relationship, and after you will grab a lot of information that will be really useful in your work. And the third one, get invited to your business partners team meeting, because like this you will hear what are their challenges. You will also see the dynamics within the team and see, even though there is maybe the head of the team that is your own business partner, you will see that he has or she has 2 or 3 key elements that you could go to in case there is something to work on. And on top, it helps you maybe present one finance topic to the whole team instead of just the team head that is your business partner. So those 3 tips, like take that with you, and like this you will build much more finance business partnership skills, and you will have much more impact.
Great, thanks for those tips. So next question, since relationships are so important for finance business partnering, what advice do you have about building and maintaining these professional relationships?
Yeah, and I actually want to start this with sharing a story. So when I first started my FP&A career after undergrad, I started at Procter & Gamble in a sales finance role. So it was the FP&A analyst partnering with the sales team. And yeah, I was excited to get started. And my manager told me at the beginning that, hey, look, the forecasts that the sales managers provide, they were skewing to be overly optimistic, right? So actual sales came in lower than what they kept predicting, and it's been fairly consistently like that. And so he said, well, one of your tasks in this role is to bring more realism into the forecasts and to hold the salespeople accountable. Because in the end, I wasn't putting together the forecast. I had to take the inputs from the sales team and had to rely on them being realistic. So my boss told me, you need to partner with them and need to influence them, and you need to make sure that we become more realistic with our forecast overall. And so I said, sure. I learned that to hold people accountable, you need to do it with data. So I ran a lot of analysis. I started to project it myself, compared it to what they had, and then armed with all this data, I joined a meeting like you see here on the screen, a big meeting. It's the monthly forecast review meeting where the entire sales team was there, the head of sales was there. And there, I would share my data and I would say things like, I don't think your conclusions make any sense. Here's why, right? And I help people accountable. And so I kept doing that. We actually did see the forecast become a bit more realistic. But then a few months in, one of the senior sales managers took me aside. And he said, well, look, I see what you're trying to do. I understand that our forecasts need to become better in terms of accuracy. But I want to share a framework with you that really helped me with relationships and with business partnering. And he said this framework is called the emotional bank account framework. Basically, what it means is that whenever you have an interaction with someone at work, it's either positive or maybe it's negative, even if it's just a little bit negative. And something like calling out someone in this big meeting, that's a withdrawal from the emotional bank account. That's a negative action. And so when he explained that, it took a while for me to sink in, but then I realized, oh wow, I made a lot of these withdrawals from my emotional bank account with those sales managers, and I didn't make a lot of deposits. And so the relationships became red, in a debit position, as accountants like to say. And that really was eye-opening to me, and it led to me approaching influencing and business partnering completely differently. So the emotional bank account framework, on the one hand, you have withdrawals. So those are things like following up repeatedly, challenging someone's point of view, escalating, missing a deadline without warning, or being late with sending someone information, saying you do something and then not doing it, or even saying you need something the same day, or you need to cut the budget. Those are all withdrawals. And sometimes, it's impossible to avoid these withdrawals. We have to cut the budgets. We have to set strict deadlines. Sometimes we have to even escalate something. But what's important is that you think about how can you lower the impact of these withdrawals, and then also how can you make deposits. So deposits, Nicolas mentioned a few earlier as well, sharing something in confidence that's not widely released, asking questions about their goals, improving a process, helping them with an Excel challenge, giving them data that they haven't had before. Those are all withdrawals. So what the emotional bank account framework does is on the one hand, it allows you to audit your professional relationships, to see which ones need improvement and which ones are going well. And it's a tool to actively improve your professional relationships by making withdrawals and by making sure there's always a positive balance in the emotional bank account of more withdrawals, of more deposits than withdrawals.
I like this this example because you gave a name to what I was doing, so it's really good. And yeah, and I think here your story, Christian, really shows the stereotype of what we do bad in finance, meaning doing our job really to the letter and missing out the fact that before being a finance person, we are business/humans. We are humans, and you will only be as good you are as a human. So don't forget that. And I think the example of Christian is really good. And what I can bring maybe as another story is how much building relationships is also about long term. Because if today you are a junior working in finance and you work with a junior salesperson, and imagine maybe in 5 years, you are maybe like the finance manager, and then the other person is the sales manager. And I can let you imagine, like, either you have a good relationship with them, and in 5 years, like when you work together, like huge success, you get for business proposals, it's really easy. You can call each other, you WhatsApp, and you get it done. Or you get to a really negative relationship, and it's like 100 of emails. Is always who is the worst one, who is the one who didn't do his work, and then go to their manager. And I'm sure the management, like your management, will want to have the relationship where, okay, those 2%, they know how to work together and they get things done. We don't know how, but they get things done and they move the business, rather than the other ones, like it's really negative and it makes problems only inside the business and makes all of the others busy. So think about long-term relationship, and it could even be in another business. Like I worked with a lot of other people where all of us, we moved, but we again worked together in another business, in another positions. And it's better that you let a good impression behind you, because like this you can build on that, and your emotional bank account is in the green position and not the red position.
All right, yeah, I like that this system, this framework, like we want to do the best at our jobs, but also keep in mind, try to be the best humans we can be as well. So great. All right, next question. One of the trends we see with the rapid development of technology is the increase in the amount of data that finance teams have to process. So how can finance teams face this challenge?
Yeah, so it's actually like even all of us, if you look at your phone, like we get, I don't know how many emails per day. We get bombarded with all of this social media, and I'm the first one. Like I don't know how many hours I spend on my phone, but we have too much information today. And if you think about your management, like go and look their email, go and look their agenda, go and look also how many presentations they have to read and reports every day. And so the problem that we had 10 years ago, where we didn't know how to get the right data, it's gone. Like now the data is there and it's too much there. So we need to step back and think, as in finance, we don't need to push the data as much as we can. Instead, we need to filter it out. And for this, because we have so much data, we need to learn other skills. It's not about doing formulas in Excel anymore. It's about how do we manipulate this data at scale. And there is already a science for this, is data science, where since years we know that more and more we have to learn this. But this data science, today they are much easier to learn because we have tools like AI that can help you manipulate data much faster. You don't need to code, you don't need to learn all of the statistics behind. You just need to have like a good brain and ask the good questions. And I challenge everybody to go in ChatGPT and ask how you can use data science to in your finance job, and you will see a lot of examples. So this is really important, because if we want to be more human, we need to be better at manipulating the data, because then we need to push this data, only the right data, to the management. And for this, on top of the data science skills, you can use Python, because Python is much better than Excel at manipulating large data. It's also much better at doing visualization on large data. It's also much better to clean large data, because in large data, there is always something that is not clean and you cannot use it. But if you clean it, you can get a lot of value from it. And I have two news for you today. Python is a new skill you need to learn. So that's the bad news. But the good news is, if you use ChatGPT to code Python, then you don't need to learn programming. And like in a few hours, we are teaching that to some people, how to use ChatGPT and Python together. And it's really fun to see people after 2 hours, like their eyes opening and seeing everything they can do once they learn Python. And the last point, when I was talking about how much data we get, there is actually a way to give data the right way. And I will just give you a stat here. Imagine that our eye sees visuals, forms, colors 60,000 times faster than words. If you look at the visual here, you see first the green box, you don't see the words. And so knowing that, if you want to influence, if you want to cut through the noise, use graphs, use visuals to make an impact. And if you do that, you make sure that you will be like almost like a top of 1% of people who do that. And then management will read your emails, your business partners will read what you send. And you know that all of the work where you work really hard will go through the people who will receive your work. And then you will have more impact. And I don't know if Christian is really good at financial storytelling as well. So do you have any tips on this?
Yeah. So one of the biggest mistakes I see finance professionals make when they present and when they tell the financial story of the business is that they show the slides, it's nicely formatted, it has nicely visualizations, has comments on it, right? And then they just read the comments and then they move to the next slide. And I think that's a big lost opportunity, because the thing is, when people realize you're just reading from the slide, they can skim the slide quickly and then they get bored, because they can read the slide in their head faster than you can read it to them. And so they'll think about the next meeting, maybe they'll even do email. But the best presenters plan the presentation in a way that for each slide, they plan something that they'll say that's not mentioned on the slide. Those are called voiceovers, right? And there are different kinds of voiceovers you can do. For example, you can do a drill down or a drill up, right? Let's say you're presenting the revenue actuals versus forecast on the country level, right? Because your company operates in different countries. You're saying, well, in the US, as you can see on the slide, we missed our forecast by 5%. But if you look at the state level, you will see that all countries are green except the state of California. In California, we missed the forecast. Here's why. But and then you could do a drill up. You could say, well, yes, we missed the forecast by 5% in the US, as you can see on the slide. But as I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation in the executive summary, on the total level, we're still projecting that we will meet our targets for the year. So that's just one. There are other voiceovers like context, action, result, for example, and telling more about what the background of the analysis was that you've done.
All right, great. So Nicolas, last time you showed us how to become a pro at using ChatGPT for finance. Do you have any other tips to share with us?
Sure. I don't know. Do we have already questions? Like either I do something based on the question that comes, or I can show what I prepared. Do you see anything, Nicole?
I think the questions, they're still coming in. Let's see.
Okay. So, well, then let's share. Let me share my screen while people will tell us what they want to see. Let me go here. Yes. Okay, we are good to.
Yep.
So, let me show you something. So I'll go to 3.5. So one thing I like, if we are thinking about having more impact as a finance business partner, is to find and to act as a more project manager rather than only a finance person. And if I'm asked to find solutions for cost savings, I can use ChatGPT as an assistant to help me. And so if I say I am an FP&A manager, I am working for manufacturing company, I need to prepare a cost reduction plan. And I can ask, can you draft an action plan in a table format? And by doing that, I get ChatGPT to work for me and to basically start to brainstorm with me on these topics. So let's see. I hope not too many Americans, because I think now America is awake. So if a lot of them are using ChatGPT, if not, I can. Let me check. Let's do it again. And that's also a trick for everybody. If it doesn't work the first time, just reload the page. You can see, yeah, that's a trick for everybody. Like if it doesn't work after a few seconds, like just try to reload the page. So you can see that it starts to propose some actions. But where a lot of people here will see that it answers my questions, but if you have enough experience in finance, you will see that is quite general. And that's where a lot of people will stop. And why it's quite general? Because I ask an action plan in one answer. And if you have worked enough in finance, you know that an action plan is like 6 months of work with like every 2 weeks a presentation, and in each presentation a focus on one topic, and then a follow-up. And it's basically like hundreds of work, and you cannot have hundreds of work replaced by one answer in ChatGPT. But ChatGPT is always limited by the output you can get, and the output is 4,000 characters. So knowing that, and 4,000 characters is like a long email. So knowing that, you need to trick the system and use one prompt engineering technique that is called the chain of thoughts. Meaning you start with the big problem and you cut it down in smaller problems. So if I'm thinking about, on all of these actions, I am thinking about the overhead expenses. Then I know this is a big problem, but I don't know where to start. Then I will ask, let's drill down on this. And now I go from the big picture to one level down. And you can see that on overhead, I start to get much more detailed actions. And now I will again say, okay, I know that we have actually really big utility bills because there was a lot of changes the last years because of the war or because of COVID. So let's go there. And again, let's drill down on this. And now I start to get something much more concrete. And it's not anymore, oh, ChatGPT is giving me something really theoretical. No, now I start to have actions that I could start working on. And if I see something here where, okay, energy saving measure, then again, let's just continue. And now I get really an action plan on how I could identify the, oh, I think I just did the same, sorry. Yeah, this one, let me edit again. So on energy saving measures, then I get much more detail and I get some ideas. And I could again now pick up on, okay, how do I optimize the ventilation system? So now make a mini project plan for this. And now I have just on this, like I can start working with this team. We can meet together and either I say, okay, we work over 1 year or we work over 1 week, like based on what we want to achieve. I have something really concrete now. And that was like 3 minutes of work. If you adapt with your knowledge of the business and your knowledge of where are the hot topics where you need to deep dive, this is super useful. And that brings you much more outside of your typical finance role, but brings you also much more impact. And this is what I call so the chain of thoughts. You start with the big problem and you go down until you have something really practical.
All right, great. Thank you, Nicolas. I see we have some questions coming in and we'll get to them shortly. If not, if you haven't put in your question, definitely put them in. And we're just going to wrap up here quickly. So I want to thank Christian and Nicolas for sharing their knowledge with us today. At DocuWare, we're dedicated to hosting educational sessions like these to ensure finance professionals like you stay ahead of the curve and that you have the latest information, strategies, and tools to excel in your field and beyond. So as a leader in document management and workflow automation, DocuWare is transforming the way that finance and accounting professionals manage their processes by enabling increased efficiency, streamlined operations, and enhanced compliance and security. So you can focus on honing those skills that Christian and Nicolas discussed today. We encourage you to explore the benefits that the DocuWare solution can bring to your organization. For more information, go to docuware.com or reach out to your DocuWare partner. You can simply reply to the webinar invitation you received. And with that, I'd like to open it up for Q&A officially now. Nick, you want to join us back here and kick us off?
Hi, folks. Hello again. Great presentation as usual. The questions are flowing in. The first one, probably more for you, Nicolas. If our company is hesitant or reluctant to move to the cloud, does it endanger the opportunity to leverage AI in the future?
So right now, the biggest solutions are not on premises because the models are so big, they are rather on the cloud. I would say you might not use the full power of AI if you don't have a company, I would say like accepted AI that you can use for company purpose. But like I showed in the first session and what I just showed now, imagine how much value I got from ChatGPT without not saying anything about my company. And that's if your company doesn't allow yet that you have a company access to ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini, you can still, by not saying anything confidential, you can still get a lot of value. Then I would say on, I would say in a midterm basis, if your company wants to use AI in some of the processes, most of the solutions today, they will go cloud and not on premises. So, and I'm sure like, I mean, today, if you use a SaaS tool, mostly the SaaS is not on your premises, but it's in the cloud. So maybe your company is already doing that without knowing it. So I work for a defense company where we had to have almost everything behind our firewall, but we still had, for some tools, the possibility on having our own dedicated servers at the service provider, but then it costs more money.
All right. Next question we have here is, how do you ensure data security and compliance when automating finance processes? Christian, do you want to kick that off?
Sure. So the thing is that automating finance processes becomes easier and easier, right? There are now a lot of software tools out there, a lot of providers out there that let you automate financial processes without necessarily needing to loop in the IT team. But when it comes to compliance, and if there's any concern that there could potentially be a risk with security or compliance, you need to bring the experts in, right? That's the time where you reach out to your IT business partner, to your data security business partner, and say, hey, I'm thinking about automating this process. This is how it works. Would you mind, joining our implementation team to help us make sure that everything we're doing here is fully compliant and meets all the security guidelines that we have to meet.
And you can also ask the vendors to give you that upfront, not that you discover along the project 6 months after that you should never have started the project. So ask most of the vendors, they get these questions all the time anyway. So ask them all of their compliance reports that are done by third parties. And there are some standards that exist. And so it's not your role to know all of the standards, but then get those documents ready and just give that to the teams in place in your company.
Thanks, guys. Another question coming in, one for you, Christian. What are the implications of automated finance processes for audit and compliance requirements?
So audits happen. So there are several implications. There are implications for the auditors, because the auditors will also use AI to audit you, which maybe will mean that the audits are even more thorough and they can spot things that maybe an individual auditor just doesn't have the time to spot. So that's one implication. You need to be ready for more data to be reviewed, for more samples to be pulled from your financial records and audited, because the auditor's capacity to do that will significantly increase. Other than that, even if you automate your financial processes, you still need to be able to maintain, an audit trail. You need to be able to have all the supplementary information, all the documentation that you need. So from that regard, not much is changing.
And one of the roles I remember at PwC that was becoming more and more important was the IT auditors, so the ITGC team. And now, in knowing all of the implications, I think this is one of the best roles if you want to have a foot in the technology, but also you like finance. It's one of the best roles to have, and also really rare to find for audit companies. If you have this double hat, like technology and finance hat, you can have a great role inside the audits, and then find also out after get hired by companies on finance transformation or by other consulting companies. So ITGC roles, I really recommend that for people who don't know where to go between finance and technology. Well, this is the right role.
All right, great. Next question is, I think this would be for Christian. How do you encourage your team to revisit and improve forecasting methods?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thanks so much for asking it, because it's so important to do that on a regular basis, to question yourself and say, hey, is there a different way we can forecast this? Can we use a different technique? There are a number of different techniques available. There's driver-based planning, there is time series analysis, there's statistical methods. And I would first look at what can you do. So I don't know, what your role is, if you're a finance manager, if you're partnering with finance, but is there a way that you can get something started, right? Research another forecasting method, start building a spreadsheet, and show your manager and show the rest of the finance team that this could be a different way of doing it. And then it will be much easier for people to support you and to jump on that and say, yeah, that looks great, you know. But first, getting started, at least getting an MVP, a minimum viable product together, can make a big difference.
Thanks, guys. There's a couple of repeat questions here, so I'm just going to skip those and go to the next relevant one, which is probably one for you again, Christian. What is your general outlook on the future of FP&A? Is it just mostly the human aspects due to AI, or is there still more to it?
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a great question. So FP&A is changing in the sense that we'll be spending much less time on repetitive tasks. So historically, the first 2 weeks of every month, if your company is doing monthly reporting, monthly forecasting, the first 2 weeks of every month are spent with, you know, crunching the numbers. First of all, getting the right data from the right systems, then preparing the data, updating your Excel models, updating your PowerPoint presentations, and then once you're done with, you know, creating your 50-page PowerPoint deck, you start talking to people and you start making sense of the numbers. And you know, some finance teams, of course, also have accounting responsibilities where there's more manual work just to get prepared the actuals. And a lot of that will become much faster, much easier. A lot of that will go away. And so you have time to go deeper, to do the analysis. So as I mentioned before, those interpersonal skills, those communication, influencing, business partnering becomes more important. But I definitely wouldn't go as far as to say your technical skills don't remain important as well. So technical skills in FP&A are financial modeling, right? You need to be able to build a return on investment model, an LTV model, a discounted cash flow model. You need to be able to do that efficiently, to make sure the model is flexible, to make sure the model is simple, make sure the model is robust, right? So, and then of course, as someone else mentioned, you need to know the different forecast techniques, and you need to know what questions to ask AI and ask your business partners. And the only way to know that is if you also have these technical skills. So I would argue that the personal skills become more important in the future of FP&A, but you still need to be proficient in those technical skills as well.
All right, next question for Nicolas. So you mentioned that Python is essential. How proficient do you need to be with it?
So you today, thanks to ChatGPT, Gemini, or Copilot, and that's also somebody asked if you don't have ChatGPT, what can you do? You have a lot of other tools that are open that you can use. And like I was explaining to Christian the other day, it doesn't really matter which tool is the best to use, like ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot. It's like going from New York to Washington. If you need to drive there, you first need to know how to drive before selecting the right car. So same with all of these tools, first know how to prompt. And on the question, Python, now you don't need to know how to code it, but you need, I would say, like 2 to 3 hours of basics. And that's what I teach with a partner on the basics to be able to start. But then it's not about knowing how to code it, it's knowing what Python can do. And once you know what you can do, you can ask ChatGPT, oh, can you do a visualization? Because if you don't know that Python can make a heat map, you will never ask for it. And so it's about asking and be really inquisitive about what can I do with Python with this data. And the more you ask questions and you research, then after you will go to the next step, which is, okay, how do I implement this? So how do I really create the heat map in Python based on my data? And this, with a few iterations, you will really quickly go to your results. And after, you can be more ambitious and build on that and start to automate some reports until you are quite comfortable using that every day, and you will learn by doing, like a lot of things. But Python is a language where if you read it, you will normally understand everything that is happening because it uses English words to tell you what is happening. So it tells, oh, here I'm combining, and here I'm reading, here I am doing an average, here I am building a plot, so a graph. And based on this, normally really fast, you master the basics of Python.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Nicolas. Another familiar question for you guys. Probably one for both of you, really. Maybe you could go first, Christian. Do you think AI would take the place of humans in the analysis of our data?
I don't think so. I think you need to look at that question from a broader angle. I think that AI and automation will result in the work changing. You know, the way a finance professional and FP&A professional will go about their day-to-day will look different in 5 years compared to today, for sure. You know, there will be different tasks, and I talked about how that's changing. There may be, as a result of that, maybe some companies can wait longer until they hire the first finance team member, because the founders and the non-technical members of the early startup team can do more with those AI tools before they have to bring a finance team on board. But mid-sized companies, large-sized companies will always need financial analysts, will always need finance people, because you need to put things into perspective and you need to influence people. You need to know what questions to ask AI. You know, it's not going to really go and create your forecast, do your analysis, and do everything for you. It's a tool, right? It's a tool that you can use to have, I think, will have more job satisfaction, because you can focus on the interesting parts of finance and the interesting parts of FP&A. But in the end, it's just a tool that will make your life easier. It won't actually fully replace a function.
And if today, when somebody asks you to analyze the budget against variance, and your only answer, oh, the sales increased by 10%, and why? Well, one product, we sold more of it compared to our budget. Then you can be sure AI is going to replace you, because what you just did doesn't provide value. Like, it's just repeating what are the data. But if you got the sales manager on the phone and he explained you, well, here we didn't plan that, but this customer just made a huge booking because they were really happy about our product, or we gave a discount, so our margin then will be slower. But overall, it's a better decision because the margin in percentages is lower, but in value we'll get more margin because we have more volume. Now, AI will never know that unless they go to the CRM, they study the discussion, and they make all of the points. And until we arrive to this point, there is still a lot of work to do. So if you can make this call and get the information that is not behind the data, then you are still really, really relevant. And then the data is in front of you, done for you, but you have the story to tell. And you can tell the story because you stay human and you use your human skills to call the sales manager that you were working 5 years before as a junior analyst, and him or her a junior salesperson.
All right, great. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. I know we're right up on the hour, so I think we'll conclude for today. And we just have a concluding slide here for you. I want to thank everyone for all the time that you spent with us. Thank you again to Christian and Nicolas for their great insights. Also to Nick for helping out during the Q&A. Please look out for an email by tomorrow morning with the recording, the slides, and the handout. Please complete the short survey that will pop up after the webinar. We really appreciate your feedback. We'll contact the first 100 attendees on the Amazon e-gift card giveaway within 30 days. We thank you again for your time, everyone, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.